Welcome to Locked On Golden Knights. We have the status of some injured players heading into VGK camp.
You're Locked On Golden Knights, your daily podcast on the Vegas Golden Knights, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hi again, everyone. Tony Cardasco along with Chris Golick from Las Vegas. I am at Tony Dasco on Twitter. He is at TD Chris G. And don't forget to subscribe to our brand new YouTube channel. That is Locked On VGK. We are at Locked On VGK on Twitter. Thanks for making us your first listen each and every day. This podcast free and available wherever you get your podcast. And Chris, top of the morning to you. What is the status currently? We'll talk about this of Mark Stone, Nolan Patrick, Nic Hague, and Laurent Brossoit heading into the preseason camp. So yesterday we saw where Elliot Friedman of Sportsnet, he dropped some valuable information on his podcast. Let's start off with Nic Hague. Nic Hague, he said, Friedman had said that he was skating with VGK, but the two sides, both the Hague side and VGK management, are not even close to a deal. He's been skating with other players from VGK. Why would Hague be out there skating unless there's at least some dialogue going on?
I think Hague is just trying to do the right thing. I think going all the way back to seeing him at the softball game to kind of seeing his little version of the PR tour we alluded to with some other VGKs over the summer, Riley Smith most notably before he got his contract. I really think that he wants to show he wants to be here. And I think there's some posturing going on too, of course. You obviously want the fans in your court and not pointing the finger at you as much as the team necessarily. So I think there's some PR to this. And I also truly do think Nic Hague does want to be here. He does want to be on the ice. And I mean, why wouldn't he be? This is all he knows as far as professional hockey goes within this organization. But as far as the dollars and cents goes, I mean, for some reason, my gut is telling me he wants more than Zach Whitecloud money, and he's not close to Zach Whitecloud talent. Call it what it is.
Yeah, and then there's only some scrap money left, a little over $1 million last I checked, below the salary cap. So they're going to have to be very creative. In that regard.
Oh, don't worry about that though. Don't worry about the creativity of the salary cap. We got that covered, Tony. We'll scratch 2-3 players. We'll go without an assistant coach. We got that covered. Don't you worry.
But the VGK brass just has to look out their window there at City National, and you see Hague right out there, skating with the team. Hey, I'm here. He wants to stay.
Hello, guys. He's up there waving. Hi.
We have the update on Nolan Patrick. No surprise. You and I have discussed this entirely the entire summer, pretty much. And somebody had them on their third line. I thought we saw, preseason, which we never could understand. Not surprised. Elliot Friedman had said that there were some rumors circulating that Patrick was going to retire. But why would you retire when you could hang out on the LTIR, perhaps stay in Vegas, who knows, or rehab somewhere else, but you could hang out here and make $1.2 million on LTIR. And then Friedman, also added, well, we've said in the past that he would be surprised if we ever see Nolan Patrick with all those head injuries playing ice hockey ever again.
No doubt. And first and foremost is the health of him for his sake, his family and everything. And that's the only thing that matters at this point. We certainly hope he can get himself right. And if he gets himself to a point where he can compete again at a world-class level, then, of course, he would be a welcome addition to what's, in my opinion, a pretty deep top 9 or even top 12 when you look at our fourth line right now. And having the depth in Nolan Patrick, who could slot somewhere in that top 12, would be a very valuable asset to this team. He was a second overall pick, if I'm not mistaken. He was right up there if he wasn't second. I know that.
He was picked ahead of Cale Makar.
Oh, yeah, I mean, logically so. But all joking aside, we certainly hope he can get himself right. And that's all that matters in this. And our gut was at the least we wouldn't see him until the calendar turns. Maybe that was just my very amateur stab at what might happen with him health-wise, and maybe even, some type of conditioning stint at the AHL level as he worked himself back up. I don't know exactly how that works. Something else to add to our salary cap drama, obviously, but we hope he gets himself right and he can be a contributor to this team, or anywhere in the NHL down the line.
There was a report, I believe it was Ben Goetz locally, about Mark Stone saying that in conversations with Bruce Cassidy, Stone will be arriving at camp, but he will have limited practices. We felt as though this would happen, and it might take a while before Mark Stone sees game action. And I mean, realistically, it could be a couple of months. Who knows? I mean, because we have to just see how his back is going to react.
Of all the things happening right now with all the question marks, Stone is actually, in my opinion, one of the least concerning. We talked about this maybe 3 weeks ago now. If Stone is, present for camp and, whether he's out there in full capacity or not, it doesn't matter a whole lot to me. If he misses the first 4 or 5 games, it doesn't matter a whole lot to me either, because I do think this team is deep enough, at least to start coming out of camp fresh without him, so they can have, playbooks and stuff like that and plays set up without him in the lineup and line combinations and things like that. When he went out, somewhat suddenly last year, that obviously put us in a tailspin. But if you have an entire camp where you're setting up lines without him, I do think that would be, the team would be in a better spot now than they were at the end of last season. I do think Stone will be back sooner than later. I would not be surprised if he started the season. There's so many. I mean, VGK's had an interesting summer with a lot of things happening, starting with Robin Lehner, of course. And VGK seems pretty keen that this is not a big deal with Stone, meaning he will either be at camp in a moderate capacity, be ready for the first game of the regular season or close to it. If this dragged on 10, 12, 15, 20 games into the regular season, you would think after the Robin Lehner situation that the team would handle this differently if there was a possible long-term concern for Stone. I get the concerns we have about how things are communicated through the media and through the fans and stuff like that as far as injuries and stuff goes, but I'm buying right now, at least right now. Hopefully we'll keep that going, but I'm buying for the moment that Mark Stone will be out sooner than later, somewhere inside the first, I'll say, 6 games of the regular season. He'll be on the ice, if not from day one.
Okay, so who fills in on that top line for Mark Stone?
My gut reaction would be Nic Hague. But again, I don't got Mark Stone on the top line. So honestly, I prefer Eichel, Marchessault, Kessel, and then having line 2 being a nice kind of hybrid defensive attacking line that features Stevenson, Stone, and Riley Smith. But either way, I think if Stone is out, I do think Nic Hague is probably the first person to make his way up to that line.
Okay, you alluded to goaltending. We know Robin Lehner is out. We know that it's going to be Logan Thompson and Hill, the 2 goaltenders. And Laurent Brossoit, we didn't have him on our bingo card as being in the picture, when camp started. And now we finally find out, I think it was Ben Goetz as well, who said that it's been a hip injury. And so hip injuries, as we know, with Robin Lehner, if he had to have surgery, take a long time to heal. It's unbelievable that Lehner has 2 hip surgeries. Incredible, right? Just falling apart. But yeah, let's talk about Laurent Brossoit. And so they will start the season with Thompson and Hill. Those will be your 2 goalies as anticipated.
Yeah, I mean, again, not a whole lot of concern about that. We knew when Hill was signed that something was happening. They weren't signing Hill because Brossoit was going to be ready or close to ready at the start of the season. I think that was a given when that signing happened. They weren't going to have a 3-headed monster that possibly left Logan Thompson going back to the AHL. I don't think that was ever the intent, but the team was kind of weird about Brossoit, about his timing and such. And clearly he's not going to be ready to start the season. I don't think he's going to be ready to start the season anytime soon, or I think they would have rolled the dice with Logan Thompson and, whatever conglomerate of Hutchinson or Patera or even Seville at this point, just
You're going to sneak
get
in
him by
Hutchinson
for a couple of games.
Yeah, come hell or high water, you want Hutchinson in that lineup. I know you do.
Hutchinson, I mean, listen, it was okay. So when the Blackhawks it was segment 1, we're going off the rail, folks. This is how it is right now. And when the Blackhawks beat the Philadelphia Flyers, I believe it was the 2010 Stanley Cup final, Michael Leighton was the goalie. And he's probably, when the season started, fourth or fifth on the depth chart. He was not the starting goalie that year. So you never know how things can shake out, in the season and such. So who knows? Maybe Hutchinson does have a role and plays 18 games at the NHL level. I don't think that would be necessarily a good thing for the team if that happens, but you just never know, Tony. And I know we're kind of kidding, but I'm kind of not in the same breath. You just don't know. You just don't know the way things are going to go, and it's the unknown. And I mean, 3 years ago, who really knew a lot about Logan Thompson?
Right. Yeah, it's pretty interesting there, and we'll have to find out what happens. First exhibition game will be on Sunday. And like we said before, you go into camp, they arrive on Wednesday, Thursday, VGK's on the ice for the first time, allegedly. Of course, they snuck in practices and all that. We won't go there illegally. And then, we just jump right into the preseason, which is really kind of cool. Coming up next, we will talk about the rookie face-off. It's over. Now we want to try to find out which players will be invited to VGK's camp out of the rookie class. Stay tuned. More after this on Locked On Golden Knights. BetOnline.net is your fastest, your easiest way to check in on all of your sports betting needs. You can find your favorite sports all the time and events right there at the #1 online source for odds, for lines, and games. Find reviews and news of every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL coming up, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all your sports wagering information, from live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts. They have you covered across the board. Go to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Welcome back from Las Vegas. Tony Cardasco, Chris Golick here. And Chris, the Golden Knights fell to 1-1-1 in the rookie faceoff. Not that that matters anything, but they lost to the Ducks yesterday, 4-3. Do you have an overall assessment of the rookies in this rookie class? And what do you think VGK was trying to get out of this rookie faceoff?
I'll start by the answer to your question about where they're trying to get out. And it's the same thing that every team is trying to get out, whether they're doing inter scrimmage type games, inter squad games, just visibility. Visibility is all that matters. And it's kind of like I would compare to the NFL training camp. The players beat the crap out of each other for 2 weeks, and then some of the teams do the inter squad type things, not inter squad, but where they have another team that they practice against. Usually features a couple of brawls along the way. We certainly catch all those on ESPN and such. And this is kind of the same thing, because when you're playing against, your own teammates, your own blood, so to speak, it's different. Now, when you're playing against players, whether you're practicing or at the game level, now everything is taken to the next level. And you want to just get a taste of what these players have, because it's all different. I mean, I'll just give you a very amateur perspective about me. It's been a while, but I'm a somewhat competitive bowler at times. By somewhat competitive, I simply mean I hate to go to sunset and practice. I hate practicing. If I'm in a league where you just pay your 15 or 20 bucks and you're done, fine, whatever. But the leagues I enjoyed are the ones where, you have another 50 or 100 bucks inside action up for grabs, and you're doing some gambling amongst each other and talking some smack. That's when for me, it goes to another level, and I really enjoy doing it. Taking that to what we're talking about here right now, people and players can go to a different level once they see another sweater on the ice against them. So I think that's the biggest thing they want to see, is just unlock the players' potential, what their potential is and what their competitiveness is, because at the end of the day, that's what matters even more than the practice. Of course, the practice is important. You play like you practice, or you take the Allen Iverson approach, of course, to practice and go from there. But at the end of the day, what matters is when you are competing on the ice, what you bring to your team. As far as, who we might see coming to the camp, I don't know how many players can possibly make this team at that level. Korzak, Brisson, those are obviously the headliners. And I think Seville is probably the third goalie that would probably come in, just at least to get reps, because we don't have Brisson.
Yeah.
Michael Hutchinson can stay in Henderson. I said Hutchinson again just because I had to get Hutchinson in there.
I knew you were going to slide him in.
Yeah.
You're his agent.
What's that?
Are
I'm not
you
his
his
agent.
agent?
No,
No.
no, I'm not his
Hey,
agent. I'm not his
hey.
agent. Although that'd
So,
be a good.
so you mentioned those two players. Yes, those are the two odds-on favorites. Caden Korzak played very well, and I liked his pairing with Leighton Ahak. Do you think that perhaps he might get an opportunity if things go south? There with Nic Hague, as we discussed. Korzak, I think, would be a suitable replacement, but I just really like the way that pair, the way they played in the rookie camp and such, and then. Lyndon McCallum also played well, had another goal yesterday. And there's a guy that I thought came on. And when the opportunity was there, I think he might have cashed in. What about those two players?
Everything you said. I mean, it makes sense. And Nic Hague is certainly the wild card. Poor Vegas pun, but he's the wild card right now that we kind of got to wait and see how that whole situation plays out. And if Hague isn't there, then you bump everybody up a notch, and everyone is that much closer. Korzak certainly, I think, would be in the driver's seat. Um, you know, I'll say it again. I'm excited for the Silver Knights this year. I really am. VGK seems pretty deep on all fronts right now for their forwards and their defensemen. And there's a lot of reinforcements at the Henderson level that hopefully, we don't need to see as many as last year, but if we do, starting with Lecision, all the games Lecision played, right? Not a lot on as far as stats goes, but someone that seemed to do everything right while he was on the ice. And I think someone like that will get rewarded, if they do log more games at the NHL level, or you look at Lecision to possibly even, lead the Silver Knights in a lot of different aspects this year.
Yeah, and I don't think we saw very much of Bruce Cassidy's system in the rookie faceoff. I think, we just saw a little bit where, again, they were just working on technique, and then they also were working on clogging the neutral zone as the only thing really that I got out of that. A couple of other interesting wild cards, biggest pun. Ivan Mrazov, the KHL
Yes.
player, real interesting, could be up. Matthias Sapovalev, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Of course, the draft selection. And what are your thoughts on those two players? Perhaps showing up, being invited to the VGK camp.
So Pavlov probably some time away, I would think. I don't know how often. I mean, he's not touted like obviously the other draft picks and stuff. And who was the first one you said, was it?
Mrazov, the KHL guy that
Yeah, maybe
you are a
Mrazov,
big
just
KHL fan.
because
Are you selling KHL cards these days?
I don't know if KHL branded specific cards exist, but that would be interesting. Don't get me wrong. I mean,
Start importing them.
no, I don't got a call. I mean, I pulled a lot of Pavel Dorofievs out of Upper Deck Series 2 and stuff, but that's no
You're a
longer
big
the
fan.
KHL side. But yeah, but I mean, the KHL is a world class league. I know we're kind of chuckling, but in the same breath, it is obviously a world class league. And I mean, I would be curious if they ever. All right, Tony, here we go. What if we ever matched up like a best on best KHL versus AHL? Like make that like how MLS does the All-Star games where it's the MLS doing like a friendly against a major powerhouse team or something like that. I wonder how if you took a couple of the top AHL teams against a couple of the top KHL teams, how that whole thing would play out.
It would be pretty interesting. Of course, rink size. If you did home and home, of course, KHL teams would probably win there, and then AHL teams
So who
would
gets home
all.
ice advantage? How do you determine that?
Yeah, exactly.
Must win the series by 2. There you go.
And then we saw they did play both goalies, by the way, in the game yesterday against Anaheim. Isaiah Seville and Jesper Vikman, and Seville, I think, has the advantage there as
Mm-hmm.
far as the pecking order now.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Seville. I've enjoyed just simply watching his growth at the AHL level right now. And maybe he's on the Logan Thompson path right now. A couple of years in the AHL level, a guy you really haven't heard a whole lot about, and then boom, here he is. And then all of a sudden next season, 2 years down the road, he's knocking on the door. Who knows?
Yeah, and this will be his first AHL full season
Right.
in the AHL. Coming up next, we've got some odds and ends to discuss. More to this on Locked On Golden Knights. Welcome back on Locked On Golden Knights. Thanks for making us your first listen each and every day. And make sure you check out our YouTube channel at Locked On VGK. Tony Cardasco, Chris Golick here in Las Vegas. Chris has had a death in the family. Condolences to you and your family. and you're headed to Chicago for about a week, and hopefully we can fill in some gaps. And yeah, that hat, I don't know if I could fill in with that hat, though. We did have some news breaking out of the NHL this morning. Zdeno Chara, one of the greatest defensemen. I love the way this is a Canadian article, defenseman, DEFENCEMEN. Not defense man, defensemen. One of the greatest defensemen or defenseman ever in the history of the NHL, Zdeno Chara, retiring after 24 seasons. And I'd have to believe that he and Bruce Cassidy have crossed paths in the past.
No doubt. I'm just sorry I'm looking away, folks, but there was a story, and I've mentioned this a couple different times, but Chara, let's see, during the 05-06 season, last season before with Ottawa, before he went to Boston, he actually went to the coaching staff with a proposal to play a full 60-minute game. Like, that's just the one thing that I am, taking into effect right there, that statement. But he was serious. Like, I've heard this on a couple different news outlets, and I want to dig a little bit deeper and maybe just at least share that on our Twitter account or something like that. But that's just the type of warrior this guy was. And just watching him on the ice, like, I guess the biggest thing about Chara that kind of gets me is, listen, you don't want to fight the dude, number one. So many up and comers have tried to take him on, and every now and then someone gets a shot in on him. But like, he takes it easy in the fights. Like, when he has the clear cut advantage, like, you see him actually slowing down, and he'll even pat the players on the back. He'll stop. Like, he'll know he's got the person just beaten to a pulp, but they're still standing toe to toe, and he'll just stop and kind of look at the refs and stuff like that. And kind of like the Rocky Four, Ivan Drago type side of him, as far as tough as nails, tough as could be. But he also did, at least in the latter portion of his career, did show some tendency to kind of wear out as the season progressed and late into the playoffs. But I mean, so what, right? Just an amazing warrior, and someone that I haven't seen him a whole lot. I don't think, just the stars in the line to bring him to T-Mobile. And I don't know how often I saw him back in my days of enjoying the Blackhawks, but super fun player. He did retire officially a Bruin. He signed the 1 year the 1 day contract. So that's a good thing. But it also wouldn't surprise me if we did hear from him again some point this season, because he's just that type of human,
Yeah. After 25 seasons of professional hockey, 1,680 NHL regular season games, 200 Stanley Cup playoff games.
That's crazy right there. You can stop right there. 200 Stanley Cup games.
And he said hundreds of international games. I'm proud to announce my decision to retire. That's going to be a painful retirement.
No doubt, Tony. No doubts.
Some of these guys leave, with their health. He's going to be pretty much banged up. Congratulations to him. A couple of VGK players, a couple of targets, I'd say, that VGK we thought might have on the radar, signed in the offseason. And you and I were talking about them in our list, but you had Rodriguez, right, who signed with who did he sign with? Colorado, right? Evan Rodriguez, and then Sonny Milano. Sonny Milano yesterday with a deal where he's just going to have a PTO, a tryout basically with Calgary. And has VGK had many or any of these type of players that they bring in for the professional tryout? Because I don't recall any.
No, I mean, the first thing that I'm going to are players that were like a Nikita Gusev, but that was a signing out of the KHL and stuff, back to the KHL again, of course. I don't think we've signed anyone to a PTO. That would be an interesting dig, I guess you can say, but I'm trying to think off the top of my head. And I honestly don't recall if we have signed anyone specifically on a PTO. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if we did, try and scratch that lottery ticket a couple of times, but I got nothing.
Yeah, no, I was just wondering that when I saw that yesterday, because I don't recall anyone now ever being signed, but Milano, we thought, could fit in here, could be a fit. And when you come in at that level, it's not going to be a big contract. It's going to be a low budget contract, right? That he'll sign.
I
just to
guess.
latch
I
on?
mean, that's such a unique situation, and it's I don't know. I guess the bigger question that I would have is what is the shuffle if Nic Hague does start the season without a contract? And then part B, which very rarely happens, if he doesn't get signed, I believe it's by December 1st, then basically he's off the books until next season. And all of a sudden that frees up whatever monies that were allocated to him to possibly do something else with. And like I saw, there's a trade announcement for your Rangers yesterday. Lundqvist was shipped off yesterday, and not that Lundqvist, the defenseman Lundqvist, of course,
Yeah,
but
not him.
Nils Lundqvist. But I saw a trade update. I'm like, and I saw a defenseman. I'm like, what happened? But it wasn't VGK. Just going back to Chara, could you imagine? This is for my beer league heroes out there, of course, showing up to beer league, whatever level it is, and here comes Chara and Yammer Yager with their skates over their bag and holding their stick, walking with a tall boy or something like that to play against you. What would go through your mind?
I think it would be a lot of fun, right?
Oh God, it'd be great. It would be
Wasn't it
remarkable.
wasn't it Patrice Bergeron? I thought I saw something yesterday where Bergeron showed up at a high school and went out there and skated with a bunch of high school kids, just for
That
fun.
doesn't surprise me one bit. There are all sorts of stories like that where players just kind of do, show up randomly, whether it's to a, like you said, like a high school, or I mean, how many times do we hear about Marc-Andre Fleury in his neighborhood, either down in Southern Highlands or when he was up in Summerlin and stuff, just, pulling over the car and playing some street hockey with the kids and stuff like that. Stuff like that is fun. And what's probably more fun are the stories we don't know about, to be honest with you. But the ones that we do hear about, that's fun, it's exciting, and it's an absolute. I mean, when my kid gets to take the ice with Derek England, I mean, little things like that. It's unannounced. We had no idea, and all of a sudden we have our most famous VGK retired alum, out there coaching my kid out there. It's awesome.
Yeah. Yesterday, we also got from betonline.ag the odds for the first NHL coach firing or resignation. And Bruce Cassidy 66-1, as is Gerard Gallant. Oh wow! Now I got to check on DeBoer. Let me do that in a moment. But at the top of the list, Sheldon Keefe from Toronto,
Yeah.
Dave Haxall from Seattle, um, Dallas Eakins from Anaheim at 15-2, Peter Lavalette 8-1. I went.
Where's Tortsets? Where's Tortsets?
That's who, yeah. And so I did tweet out. I know you've been real busy, but I did tweet out that he's 18-1.
Oh,
Tortorella, and that's great value. Let's go all in on that bet.
yeah. I mean, that or the Toronto coach, I think, is interesting because Toronto, they are on such eggshells up there. That has to be such a weird environment, just given the roster that they have and the fact that they, can't escape that first round. Edmonton finally had a little run, so I think the coach up there is safe. The Seattle coach, I actually like that bet right there because, right, Seattle, the first year was, hey, we're here. What happens, what happens. They were not competitive by any means, but they're getting their feet wet. Now they're making some moves. And I think the transition in Seattle is actually starting a little bit earlier than most anticipated to become a competitive team, possibly as early as this year, depending on how some of the rookies and their year one prospects develop. So if they're ready for the next step, is the current Seattle coach the one who is their long-term target to take them to the next level? That would honestly possibly be my knee-jerk reaction to bet right there.
Okay, so Pete DeBoer, I'm one of those people that thinks that things are not going to go fantastic, especially at the start in Dallas. He's 50-1 to be the first coach fired. Not going to happen this season, folks. But I'm just curious to see how things go. He does have a goalie. Things are set there with Jake Ottinger, but Dallas is a real interesting case, and I'm just curious, very curious to see how that team does. I don't think they're going to be a Stanley Cup contender in year one for Pete DeBoer.
So Pete DeBoer's track record is what's important here. teams, when he first goes there for his first year, make deep runs. I think 2 Stanley Cup Finals appearances, and then with the Vegas Golden Knights, made it to the conference finals. So I think he'll have a successful season one. If you're going to handicap it based off of his recent success, he should go to the Final Four theoretically. He should go to the conference finals and possibly the Stanley Cup finals. And Dallas may not be a team that you think of initially that could be that type of juggernaut, but that top line, right, was Rupe Hintz, J-Rob. They got a lot of quality defensemen. They got Ottinger. Pavelski is still there too. I mean, that team could do something. And was there another San Jose transplant that went down there or no, besides DeBoer? I can't remember off the top of my head, but either way, I mean, that team could do something. Colorado is going to be the biggest problem, obviously, they're going to face being in that division. And Nashville is a very under the radar team that has improved greatly. They're anchored still by Roman Josi, obviously, on the defensive side. But Dallas, they got their work cut out for them. It's not going to be like the Pacific where you have maybe a couple higher level powerhouse teams, and there's a lot of questions after that. You got a lot to deal with right now in the Central on the top side, and it's tough knowing your probably best case scenario is WC1, WC2.
Oh yeah, Steve Spott is there in Dallas too. He took the assistant coach with him, Steve Spott.
I mean, that's how it rolls. Okay, that's how it goes.
All right, I'm going parading tonight. There was a longer parade.
You don't need your walking shoes, at least. Sorry.
There was a longer parade for the Summerlin. The route for the Summerlin Little League team had a much longer route.
Ooh.
Oh my goodness!
No, Tony's feeling spicy this morning. Tony, stop leaking what the Friday. Stop leaking what the Friday early.
The WNBA Las Vegas Aces, their championship parade, in air quotes, because you're listening. If you're watching, I just did them for you. The parade route is from Caesar's Palace to Bellagio. Come on, man, get with it. Yeah, that would be. It's good thing it's not Friday because I'm ready to be triggered. Don't forget to join us again tomorrow. We'll get back. We'll have a parade recap for you even. It's the first day of camp for VGK.
Short segment.
And there we go. Great day. Yeah. Awesome parade. And that's it. Thanks for making us your first listen each and every day. We appreciate that. Now make your second listen. Locked On NHL. Locked On experts give you that daily 30-minute podcast on all things National Hockey League all year long. Stay up to date on everything in the hockey world. Locked On NHL, your daily 30-minute podcast available wherever you get your podcast. For my man, Chris Golick, I'm Tony Cardasco. We'll see you tomorrow right here. We'll have the parade recap tomorrow on Locked On Golden Knights.